I still remember the day like it just happened yesterday. I had just flown back to Chicago after years of being gone, years of chasing deals, building companies, standing on stages with people clapping my name. Everyone thought I had it all together. They didn't know that behind all that shine, there was a man back home, the man who made me, and I hadn't been there for him. I was sitting in the back of a black car scrolling through messages that honestly didn't matter anymore when I told the driver to take a detour. Something in me needed to see the old neighborhood, the cracked sidewalks, the houses leaning just a little too far to one side, the smell of fried onions that always hung in the summer air. As we turned down Maple Street, I saw him. My father, well, not by blood, but by something stronger, was standing on a neighbor's porch with a chipped bowl in his hands. His shoulders slumped, his shirt washed so thin it looked like tissue, and he was whispering to the lady at the door, like a man asking for forgiveness instead of food. "Please, if there's just a spoonful left," I heard him say, voice trembling but polite. My chest locked up. This was Elijah Carter, the man who once went hungry, so I could eat, the man who sold his only cow so I could sit for exams, the man who everyone said was a fool for pouring everything into a boy that wasn't even his blood. And here he was begging for scraps in front of neighbors who whispered, "Ain't that Carter again? Didn't his boy turn into some rich hot shot? Where's that boy now?" I stepped out of the car, my shoes hitting gravel that felt like it carried every year I'd been gone. People behind the hedges gasped. That's him, the billionaire. I hated the word right then. Because what good was a billion when the man who gave you everything was standing there with an empty bowl? I froze at the gate, my voice caught somewhere between shame and love. Finally, it broke free, thin, shaky. "Dad." Elijah turned, and when his eyes met mine, I swear the world stopped. He rubbed his hand on his pants, nervous, like he always did when he didn't know what to say. The bowl shook in his other hand. He tried to smile because even in his weakest moments, he was still polite. "Afternoon sun," he murmured. Inside his little house, the air was clean, but thin curtains frayed the same squeaky fan I remembered from childhood, humming like it was still trying its best. He set the stew down like it was a holiday feast and whispered a prayer under his breath. My throat tightened. This man who once starved himself so I could eat was bowing his head over scraps. I sat across from him, tracing the knife scars on that old kitchen table, each mark a map of sacrifices he never complained about. Outside, I could hear the neighbors still whispering, "Billionaire doesn't even come home. Shows up now when it's too late." The words cut deep because they were true. Finally, I couldn't hold it in. My voice cracked. "I left you here, hungry." And I kept telling myself I was too busy, that I'd come back after the next deal, the next headline. Elijah chuckled softly, tapping his spoon. "Son, don't shame yourself. You were building. That's what I wanted for you. But that broke me even more." I slammed my hand on the table, not out of anger, but because guilt was eating me alive. The sound shook the walls, made the whispers outside fall silent. "You gave me everything. You went hungry so I could walk into rooms I didn't deserve. And where was I when you needed me? Where was I when you were standing on a porch begging for food?" Tears slipped down before I even knew they were there. The billionaire mask crumbled in front of the one man who had always seen the scared little boy inside. Elijah reached over, rough fingers covering mine steady, even though his hands trembled. "I didn't do it for thanks. Love doesn't need payment, son. Love just gives." I bowed my head, breathing in that familiar smell of soap and sweat, the smell that clung to my clothes when I was a kid, and I realized it wasn't too late. Not if I chose differently now. I lifted my head, voice stronger, carrying not just to him, but to the whole street outside. No more scraps, no more quiet suffering. "Dad, you're coming home with me." The neighbors froze. Even the gossips couldn't find words. They weren't watching a billionaire anymore. They were watching a son broken and remade in front of his father. I helped Elijah up his frame lighter than it should have been and whispered, "This isn't charity. This is family." The bowl of stew sat forgotten on the table. As we stepped outside, sunlight spilled over us, and I heard someone whisper, "Never thought I'd see him carry anyone but himself." Another voice answered, "That's not just carrying, that's paying back." At the mansion that night, Elijah sat at a dining table longer than the street we grew up on, surrounded by staff who treated him with respect, not pity. He bowed his head like he always had and whispered grace. And I sat there watching him eat real food, a smile tugging at his lips, and for the first time in years, I felt peace. Weeks later, at a gala where cameras flashed and leaders leaned in to hear me speak, I pulled Elijah to my side and told the truth. If you see me as a billionaire, remember, I am only the shadow of his sacrifice. This man fed me when he was starving, clothed me when he had nothing. He taught me what real wealth is. The room fell silent, not a cough, not a whisper, just people seeing dignity in the man they'd never noticed before. And yet, even with that speech, even with the headlines that followed, I can't forget the sight of him standing on that porch with a bowl in his hands. It changed me. It burned away all the illusions I had about success, because at the end of it all, money without love is just paper. So now I'll ask you, what would you have done if you saw your father begging at a neighbor's door while you lived in comfort? Do you think neighbors were right to judge me? Or do you think society is too quick to call someone a fool for giving everything to a child that isn't theirs? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's talk about love, about sacrifice, about what really makes a person rich. And if this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs hope today. Don't forget to like and subscribe because I've got more stories. Stories that prove money fades, but love, sacrifice, and dignity, those last forever. I still remember the day like it just happened yesterday. I had just flown back to Chicago after years of being gone, years of chasing deals, building companies, standing on stages with people clapping my name. Everyone thought I had it all together. They didn't know that behind all that shine, there was a man back home, the man who made me, and I hadn't been there for him. I was sitting in the back of a black car scrolling through messages that honestly didn't matter anymore when I told the driver to take a detour. Something in me needed to see the old neighborhood, the cracked sidewalks, the houses leaning just a little too far to one side, the smell of fried onions that always hung in the sun.